Hey, what's up, everyone? It's BRAP. It's Wednesday. I can't believe it's Wednesday already. Give me a sec here, guys. I just want to adjust my mic settings here. All right, yeah, it's Wednesday. Look, it's lot to talk about. Lot to talk about today. Look, I want to give everyone in the live chat a big shout out. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening here on BRAP. The rest of the panel will be trickling in here shortly. We're gonna have Game Logic, formerly known as Lee Hampton or Hamp. Yeah, he'll be joining us here in a little bit as well. Look, please do me a favor, hit that like button. If you haven't done so already, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot to talk about. We have some Starfield news. I gotta say, this Activision merger is getting very spicy. Lulu, and I forget her last name, she's the chief communications officer of Activision, is just kind of let the cat out of the bag regarding some of the conversation that has been having behind the scenes, and more specifically what Jim Ryan said in front of the EU in Brussels. So we'll talk about that. And then, look, there's some games to talk about. Halo Infinite Season 3 just kicked off yesterday. I said last night, but I played last night, yesterday. I had the opportunity to play some of the new maps and see some of the new armor drops with Halo Infinite, and so we'll talk about that. But and then Microsoft, back to the ABK deal. Microsoft presumably confirming that they did offer Call of Duty to Sony PlayStation on the PlayStation Plus subscription service. So in fact, they're saying, yeah, we actually did offer that. But Sony has a response to that, so we'll talk about that as well. So, but yeah, no, there's a lot of game. I tell you, I keep looking at some of the game releases that have happened early 2023. And I've said this a lot of times on the show. This has been a great 2023, and it's really come out strong. I mean, Wulong just came out, and that is actually available on all platforms. It's actually available on Game Pass. So if you're a Game Pass subscriber, look, this is probably why you subscribe to Game. At least this type of game is why I subscribe to Game Pass. Plus, for Microsoft's other first-party titles, look, I get the value proposition of older titles. That doesn't move the needle for me in a subscription service like Game Pass, but these types of new releases, I'd like to see Microsoft do more of these types of things to kind of sweeten the value proposition for me. And everyone's value proposition use case is going to be different for Game Pass. It's very important to, I think, make that to kind of clarify that, because look, we all have different, as consumers, we all consume things differently and see value in things differently. So everyone's use case for Game Pass is going to be different. Which is why I say it's a tremendous value proposition, but in it may not be a value proposition for everyone, which is great. So so we'll talk about those things. I do want to address something real quickly, because people are getting confused with some of the things, or not paying attention, or just don't want to apply to any critical thought to some of the things I'm saying on social media. But one of the things that I've noticed more recently is that people are like, BRAP, I can't believe, stop saying that Lulu is using Trump-esque tactics. Lulu being the ABK chief communications officer. And stop saying that Xbox fans, comparing them to insurrectionists, the January 6th insurrectionists. Now, look, I'm not saying all Xbox fans are extremists. I'm not saying that at all. That's not what I'm saying, and I've been on record numerous times on the show. By the way, that's how I know. That's how I know what people don't actually listen to the show or follow me on Twitter, because they'll be like, "Oh, BRAP, you said that all Xbox fans you're comparing to insurrectionists." No, I've never said all Xbox fans. I specifically said the fanatical extreme side of fanatics on the Xbox community are behaving like insurrectionists. And so what people don't realize is when I say insurrectionist, oops, hold on a sec here. I am I'm not actually saying that they're going to go storm the Capitol and, and do what the insurrectionists did on January 6th. No, what I'm saying is that the behavior is similar in the sense that the insurrectionists believed in conspiracy theories. They question the governing body of the United States. They question the electoral process and if you could, again, if you go back, you look at some of the verbiage of what some of the more extreme elements of the Eric B says I lost them. I'm sorry, Eric B. I'm not trying to lose you, good sir. But if you think about the extreme rhetoric around questioning of the electoral body and the government in general, you'd understand that the same rhetoric and questioning, Lena Khan and saying that she should be fired and that the FTC doesn't have a case, and using these conspiracy theories to say that the FTC is corrupt, to say that the DOJ is corrupt. I mean, these are talking points, by the way. Yes, and Sam C's not wrong. I mean, people even said that the CMA was unconstitutional. CMA is not a body in the United States. Can't be unconstitutional in the U.S. Oh, wow, Def Floyd. That's pretty funny, actually. But what my point is it's the behavior, okay? The same, the hive mentality, which the insurrectionists kind of fell into, and the questioning of the legitimacy of governing bodies that the insurrectionists were speaking out against on the premise of conspiracy theories, on the premise of misinformation, disinformation. So that is my point. It's the same behavior. And like Jeeves said, behavior and voice of a vocal minority, which in this case the insurrectionists were, and the extremist fanatical side of the Xbox community is as well. That is where I draw that comparison. And I hope everyone's following me what I'm saying. I'm not saying that all Xbox fans are insurrectionists, but I am saying that the behaviors surrounding the ABK deal, where people in the Xbox community, the extremists, the extreme Xbox influencers, the extreme Xbox YouTubers were coming out and saying things like, this is unconstitutional, this is rigged, they're trying to protect Sony, Lena Khan should be fired. I mean, people were literally saying Lena Khan should be fired. I've seen xenophobic commentary levied at Lena Khan over this deal. I've seen misinformation, disinformation. Put out by influencers, put out by the fanatical fan base. So that's my point. That is what I'm talking about here. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying it's all it's not all everyone in the Xbox community. I'm not saying that. I'm not going at. I mean, think about this. You have Xbox podcasters, extreme podcasters, not all Xbox podcasters. There's some great Xbox shows out there. Actually, the Xbox centric show that I listen to, that I feel is the best out there, is Defining Duke. But you have people that are on the extreme fanatical side that are coming out saying, hey, I don't know about business, but I know about honesty and integrity. And Jim Ryan isn't honest. Like, I don't understand. Like, again, same kind of rhetoric. Joe Biden isn't honest. He doesn't have any integrity. The election was stolen. This whole system is rigged. People are questioning the process here, the regulatory process, saying it's rigged. But they haven't been paying attention. They haven't been paying attention. Eric B, I'm not saying they're not extremists on the PlayStation community. I've seen it. I've seen some really weird behavior. But let's stay on topic here. Let's not throw the whataboutisms out there. Because this isn't a competition. I'm making a point here because people are saying that I'm labeling a certain community or applying that label across the whole community, and I'm not. And so I felt like it's important to kind of flesh this out a little bit more and say and explain why I've made that analogy. Because it's interesting. It's funny I did something this week. So the Department of Justice has sued to block the merger acquisition between JetBlue and Spirit Airlines. So I don't know if you're not familiar with JetBlue or Spirit, they are like, cheaper airline alternatives to like American Airlines or United or something like that, right? They're the cheaper alternatives. And so they want to merge. They want to come together, and there's been a lot of M&As have happened in the airline industry, and the DOJ is suing them. And this is, again, a vertical merger, just like the ABK Microsoft M&A is. It's a vertical merger. And so they are challenging this. And again, I guess the issue that I have too is when you say that and I can't wait for this deal to be over with, by the way. When you sit there and you say things like, hey, I can understand why the regulatory bodies are, reviewing the ABK Microsoft acquisition. I can understand why they're reviewing it, that there's something there, that there's some legitimacy to this. And you say that, and people are like, oh my God, this is, Oh, well, hold on a sec here. Hey, Logic, what's up, man? I don't know if you can hear me, Logic.
Yeah, I can hear you. I had you. I had you piped into my headphones via the Discord chat and the YouTube, so I had to turn the YouTube off.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I saw you in the chat and BRAP, and I was like, oh, he must be here. So.
Oh, there's Daniel Wynn, who wanted me off the show because viewership is down and he can't stand when I'm on.
Yeah, well, you know what, Daniel? Too bad. Game Logic is here. But yeah, so Logic, I was kind of going off on a rant here, man. I don't know how much you heard.
Yeah, I think I walked in on that. I didn't hear the whole thing though.
Yeah, I was just talking about like explaining to people how. So Apex Pro says, BRAP, why do you care? You don't work for the government and talk so serious about it like someone's going to hurt you. So, so basically what I was talking about, Logic, was that because people were saying that, that I was saying that all Xbox community members are like the January 6th insurrectionists. I think you saw a certain individual we know actually quote tweet that and say, hey, would you stop saying that about the Xbox community? And it's like, no, I've never
right.
I've never said that about the entire Xbox community. And I was trying to explain to the audience the analogy that I made, why I made that analogy. And that a lot of the rhetoric around the ABK deal, that it's fixed, that the FTC that it's unconstitutional, that the FTC is corrupt. I mean, where else have we heard those kind of accusations about the government?
Right, exactly, and that's why the similarities are drawn. That seems to confuse people, but I mean that's the tangible, objective evidence of why the analogy is made.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. And so Apex Predator saying, why do you care? You don't work for the government. You talk so serious about it like someone's going to hurt you. I got to be honest, Apex Predator, that is I I don't know, Logic. I don't. Oh man.
Yeah, well, I think you've actually been threatened with, faux physical violence, or I don't know what I would call it, but I mean, I've definitely seen, champions and proponents of that sect of the Xbox community say, things like, you wouldn't be so belligerent in person. I saw one other person suggest that, I don't know, you offered all those arguments until they quote unquote got in your ass on Twitter. So I mean saying that the argument goes until or as if someone is going to hurt you seems strangely apropos, given that some people have suggested that they would do exactly that.
But also to his point, like, why do you care? You don't work for the government. Like, no, this isn't about me caring about the government as much as it is having a just mature, thoughtful conversation about this. And Apex, what you're probably used to is the Jim Ryan's a liar and the FTC is crap. Like this is when I talk about the regulatory process, it's not because I care about the government. It's not because I'm actually trying to have a level-headed conversation about what's happening here, which seems to be out of the equation. Like nobody wants to have, I should say nobody, but many people that I see across my timeline, not all, but many, don't want to have that conversation. They get upset when you question this deal. How could you question this deal, BRAP? You're just a pony if you're questioning this. It's great for gamers. Actually, Erodimus, you actually insinuated that I said that, the entire Xbox community.
I mean, I guess my personal feeling because again, I've used the same analogy. I mean, we kind of developed it together. If and I'm asking this question and I'm trying to understand the accusation that was thrown or the statement that was made or whatever, Erodimus. It's not casting shade on your character, but if you didn't say the entire Xbox community, then that seems to suggest that you understand that it was only applicable to a certain sect or subset of the Xbox community, and the label is absolutely appropriate, and it's kind of if the shoe fits, wear it. The analogy is around that there are people who, in the face of being presented factual, quantifiable, objective information and fact, or simply asked a question, get angry. That is a very similar response to people who utilize political tactics, who attempt to shout down the spread of information. And that's problematic. It's not a matter of whether or not anybody actually agrees with them or not. It's simply the presentation of actual information. It goes back to when I was on Twitter and I would crawl through a CMA report or the EC report, and I would present, segments of that were not questionable. Those things tangibly exist. They're not my opinion. They're what was actually written, and people would get angry over that, or would accuse you or accuse me of having a certain intent, right? Trying to stop the deal, or being against the deal, or being a supporter of Jim Ryan, or being a supporter of Sony. And it doesn't matter how much you tamp that down or deny it, or again, present your own receipts of your own tweets indicating that is not the case. But there are people who represent a behavior where the last thing that they want is further information to be spread. And that's the type of mentality and the type of behavior that we're talking about when we make that analogy.
Yeah. And, Erodimus, when you say, did I say you said the entire Xbox community? I'm more than happy to read your tweet. You actually said, please stop calling things Trump-esque or comparing Xbox fans to January 6th insurrectionists. Xbox fans. I mean, you don't think that...
Yeah, we've said multiple times on this show, right, and on Twitter, that the label is not applicable to Xbox fans. It is applicable to the subset of Xbox fans that are Xbox fanatics or fanaticists. I mean, so it is specifically not to everyone. We've said that I don't know how many bajillion times. It is to the people who represent the type of behavior that I just articulated.
And that's the point. And that's the analogy. And I just don't I don't know. I don't think this is something that's, oh my God. Erodimus, dude, I gotta be honest with you, dude, like Xbox fans, Xbox fans. I mean, like what?
Are we not supposed to read that term as applicable to all?
Yeah, I mean,
so I'm supposed to take the phrase
plural? I mean, like
Xbox fans. I'm supposed to take that phrase as meaning some like unspecified subset of the Xbox fan base. I mean, who are? I guess I don't understand what the term Xbox fans or Xbox fan base means in your tweet. If it's supposed to mean some subset, I don't know which subset you're referring to. And again, if you're saying stop talking about the subset to which we say that behavior is applicable, I guess the simple answer to that is no. Right? If there's a subset of people representing a certain behavior consistently, and you're asking us to no longer describe it that way, the answer is no, because the analogy is applicable.
Yeah. And Eric B, I'm sorry. You started like, dude, this isn't elementary school. Like, this isn't like, all right. I'm just going to move on, man.
Yeah, and Eric B, that's a thing. I feel like I have a lot more. I'm a lot more emboldened now that I'm not a regular cast member. This topic of don't mix politics and games. Again, I'll say no. If a behavior that's represented in a political space is applicably analogous to something that's going on in another space, I don't care if it's music, the media, elementary school, as it seems these conversations are commonly similar to, it doesn't matter. It's not, that accusation is a great narrative, and it's an attempt to say, oh, you're trying to say that Xbox fans are Republicans, or you're trying to say Xbox fans are aligned with the Conservative Party. No, that's not the accusation. You use a level of sophistication of understanding that is greater than, again, elementary school or middle school or a fifth grader. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that there is behavior that they are displaying that is similar to behavior that we've observed, because those are the behaviors that most of us learn about or are exposed to in school in the study of how our government system works. It's a thing that should be readily accessible and understood by people listening to the conversation. It is an analogy that is put forth from the thought that there would be a common plane of understanding. So that's not mixing politics and games. There seems to be, and it's not only on that. There's a lot of narratives around that where both the Xbox and the PlayStation community, I will say, it seems like there's a lack of understanding of analogies, right? Like, unless you're drawing a parallel to a thing that specifically happened in games or the gaming industry, then there's an attempt to dismiss it. That's actually not the way analogies work, or metaphors. They're actually a representation of a similar activity, a similar event, a similar behavior, a similar anything that has gone on in a different space. So, I mean, some people understand that and some people don't.
Eric B, I don't know how much clearer I can get. You say, BRAP, you compared Xbox gamers to MAGA. No, not all Xbox gamers. Again, like, this isn't rocket science, people. Like, I don't know how else to explain this. The most extreme fanatical Xbox gamers.
It's like, just wait. Just wait, nailed it. He said politics and sociality permeates pretty much everything. People don't mix politics and games. Or I think what he's saying is they only say that when they don't agree with politics. Yeah, this is the same thing. And yeah, people are going to get upset now because it's going to seem like another analogy. It's going to seem like I'm saying that they're aligned with that political party. When a shooting happens and people talk about gun control and people say don't politicize an event. No, gun control isn't solely politics. Gun control is about safety. It's about me being concerned about sending people to school. That's not an attempt to necessarily politicize it. The realization and the implementation of that needs to have a political format. But me discussing the notion of safety isn't necessarily a politicizing event. People term it your politicizing event because they're attempting to vilify, right, your perspective, which is this exactly what is going on here, is that when we compare people who are acting in ill faith because they're attempting to rile a mob, start a revolt, right, in terms of conversation that's presented on social media, and we compare those behaviors to people who shout down the spread of information, deny the notion of anybody asking a question, denying anything that detracts from an alignment to dogma, then that person or those individuals are vilified for spreading information or asking questions. And that is why they're being compared to the behavior that we also see in political spaces.
And Ross, you say I tend to call people that who disagree with me. No, that's not true. No, that is not true. That is not true. Like your buddy Everborn, I've disagreed with him on numerous occasions. I never said he was a insurrection. I never compared him to, to the MAGA movement. So I'm not sure where you're getting that from, and that's the problem. Like you say things, and you really just speaking out your ass. Like you're just. It's almost like you're just making shit up.
It's a similar behavior, man. It's the attempt to dismiss an argument by vilifying it and making us out to be the devil. So I think we can just move on.
Rodimus, like, you can't insult people's intelligence. Absolutely, I can insult people's intelligence. I mean, like, that's not when people like. Look, man, I don't know what to tell you, Rodimus. I mean, look, there's people in the know, there's people who don't know, and when people want to. In spite of actually when you present them evidence and facts, and they want to argue against that, and when you explain to people how, again, I'll use the ABK thing as an example, when you explain to people how the regulatory process works and why things happen, and in light of that, people say, "No, you're wrong. It's corrupt." Yes, then I'm going to question their intelligence. When you point to the sky, you say that sky is blue, and they say it's red. Yes, I'm going to question their intelligence. Sorry,
right?
Sorry, Logic.
And I'd say I'd also understand that questioning of people's intelligence. Most of the time, most of the time, I won't necessarily say every, but most of the time, right? It's normally because there's a precursor of. A statement is made or a question is asked, and the response is anger or an insult. People's intelligence get questioned. People's intelligence gets questioned when they make an accusation in a very inflammatory manner, and then fail to back it up with actual facts and information, and then when presented facts and information counter to what they've said, get angry.
That's exactly, and that's my point. They get angry. And when you ask them, when you present something, facts, when you present, and again, I'll use the ABK deal, when you present to them historically how the FTC's behaved, how they've taken, and again, I brought up the whole, Spirit, what is it, Blue?
JetBlue attempting to buy out Spirit.
Yeah, and so this is a vertical merger, and again. This is, we've talked about the Epic deal. Like, people are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe Jim Ryan's acting like this." It's like, guys, did you not pay attention to Tim Sweeney? Did you miss that show? Have you never been around a C-level executive? People are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe." And Lulu actually, Lulu giving us some more insight today to the behind the scenes of this deal. And Jim Ryan, I'm seeing people, "Oh my God, I can't believe Jim Ryan. I can't believe he said that he wants to block this deal." I'm like, have you never been around a C-level executive? I've heard those conversations. Anyhow, I'm sorry, Game Logic. I just went on a rant here, man.
Nope, I understand. It's been brewing for a while. And hey, just unfortunately, I'm paying attention to the chat. It's just you and me falling back into my old behaviors. I think in the chat, I would just say maybe I would just recommend just maybe pump the brakes a little bit. There's a lot of discussion of exactly what we were trying to say. It's not what we're saying. So people are talking about, which fan base is closer aligned to conservative politics versus liberal politics. Again, that is exactly not the point, right?
No,
we haven't been trying to say, we haven't been trying to say that there's a certain sect of the Xbox fan base that is going to storm the Capitol and claim that the election was stolen and attempt to reinstate Trump. Right, that wasn't the point. The point was, and again, BRAP has said, on Twitter, Trump, and maybe we said that on the show, but when BRAP and I have pulled this thing apart offline and decomposed it further, it's not just Trump. I mean, I'm not going to draw those analogies because I think some of those analogies are more extreme, but it's like any political regime which has attempted to suppress the spread of information, come after people who have asked questions, and you can say a political regime or religious regimes. It is that type of behavior that we're pointing to. So the Trump and the insurrection is just picking at a current event that people are familiar with, but you can go back through 500 to 1,000 years of history and pick any other group that has represented analogous behavior. If that label makes you more comfortable or less upset.
Now somebody got Slow-Mo riled up. What's up, Slow-Mo? Oh man! All right, so I want to move on to gaming here because Logic. I wish Slow-Mo can't make it tonight. I think he's got some work or something to do, but I was hoping to have Slow-Mo tonight because we played Halo Infinite Season 3 released yesterday, and we had the opportunity to run some games. Actually, it's me, you, Slow-Mo, and actually before you jumped on Game Logic, me and Slow-Mo were running with Deli for a little bit. Then you joined. He went to go play Call of Duty, which I got to say, Logic, I'm actually enjoying Call of. I thought I would never say this, by the way. In years, I thought at some point I was done with Call. Well, at some point I was like, I'm done with Call of Duty. I don't want to play Call of Duty multiplayer anymore. What brought me back to the Call of Duty franchise was actually Warzone, and I was like, okay, Warzone's it. I'm never going back into the multiplayer. But I got to say, I'm enjoying it, Logic. I mean, obviously, no worries, Slow-Mo. No worries, man. As you know, I'm on there a lot, but I'm having fun. I'm having fun with it. And we'll talk about, Call of Duty a little bit more, here in a little bit, but no, Season 3 came out and, so new maps, we got to play. If you want to play like all the new maps, it's you have to access the oh shoot, what is it again? I had it written down.
The event.
The event. I forgot the name of the event now. It's hold on a sec here. What the heck's the name of the event now? Echo. Is it the Echoes Within?
Mindfall.
What is it?
Mindfall. The season is called The Echoes Within, but the actual event is called Mindfall.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so I had Echoes Within, so I totally botched that. But that's all right. All right. So the new maps. We didn't play the. There's a big team map, which is Oasis. I haven't checked that out, but I saw Ains. Big shout out to Season Gaming. I saw Ains tweet out a picture of that. But I just can't, Logic, I have no interest in getting back into big team battle, man. Like, that's just not something I want to do. I just feel like big team battle's too chaotic. Go ahead, man.
No, it leans. It's not there, but I can still feel it kind of pushing on the edges of why I don't like Battlefield. And you've unfortunately heard me wax and wane, way too much and too often about My big thing in online multiplayer PvP is I don't like idle time, and that's why I can't stand Rainbow Six Siege, right? Because if you get killed, you're just like hanging out there, freaking I don't know what, eating popcorn, picking at your nose or whatever, while the rest of the match continues and your friends are still in. But Battlefield is, you get killed, you go back to a spawn point. Let's call it a 1 minute cycle time, right? You could spend 40 seconds transiting back to the fight, and be in the fight for 20 seconds. It feels kind of like that 2 to 3, 1 to 3 ratio. And that's the way kind of big team battle almost feels. It's not as bad as the Battlefield dynamic, but it's very close to that. And again, a big thing for me, when I do play games like that is I'm concerned about, how many combat repetitions do I get, within a span of time. And the less it gets, the less interested I am and the less engaged I am, which, is why I just, it's kind of a hard out with battle royales for me, despite my brief flirtation with Fortnite. But yeah, big team battle is kind of in that direction, from a design perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's the map for Big Team Battle Oasis, and then there's another map that we play. I think it's Cliffhanger, which takes place on top of a cliff at on a facility, and then there's Chasm, which is the one that we played. I think Chasm. I feel like Chasm is the one.
Hold on. So Slow-Mo is trying to get at me. He said, easy way to fix that logic is not to die. I direct your attention, which you should be able to access, back to the JPEG.
Steve Kerr
in the BRAP Discord, where I am clearly delineated as the MVP of that match. So,
Steve Kerr.
Sometimes being a team player means taking one for the team, and sometimes that means you die, Slow-Mo. But if you weren't just out running around all for yourself, then you'd understand that.
That was actually kind of funny. Slow-Mo was like, "Wait a minute, you got MVP? Yay, Steve Kerr, man, Steve Kerr."
That's right. hitting those threes.
Yep, hit those threes. Yep. All right, so
that's right, Slow-Mo. You God rest his soul, but yes, you are Kobe.
Yeah, I won't. If you're Kobe, then Deli is Michael Jordan. Deli's actually really good. So Chasm was the one map I think that we played quite a bit. I feel like that one came up in the rotation a lot. Well, actually, I mean, they both did, but I feel like we got Chasm more than the other one. And the one new game mode was Escalation or Escalation Slayer. And that's the one where you start off with, I believe, with rocket launchers, and I forget what the secondary is. Is it the?
I think Sniper is Sniper next after that.
Sniper's after that, but you start off with rockets and Cinder Shot, and then after that,
I never saw Cinder Shot. So I mean, maybe it's in that rotation, but I just didn't get it.
Yeah, and then so basically, it's you were basically it's 4-on-4 Slayer. It's Escalation, so you start off with a weapon loadout. And then after a team accumulates enough kills or enough points, then they get their second loadout, and so on and so on. So it's interesting because it actually forces you to play with different weapons, which I thought it was fun. I mean, like, there's certain weapons that I hate using that I'm kind of glad that I was forced to use them, because now it's like, okay, like if I ever get into a situation where these are the weapons that I have access to, and I feel more comfortable using them in engagements. But I got to say, I thought it was I enjoyed the game mode. I had a lot of fun playing it.
Yeah, I like that one too. And Slow-Mo, I will never argue with you or try and present that that you're not a better player than I am. You absolutely are. I do give you much props for going 16-5 that round. So. But yeah, I like that mode. It's weird, Slow-Mo pointed out, to help me get situated because I came into the match late. He was like, "Yeah, this is kind of like gun game in Call of Duty, which I'm much more familiar with." But the weird thing in gun game is you start with kind of the booty weapons, right, and then they upgrade. So it's weird that you start with Spanker, right? Which seems like, that would be the big master upgrade. But overall, I like the mode. And the thing, and you pointed out a big thing. I normally I like the mode and the design of Fiesta, which should actually do the same thing. But the problem with Fiesta is that it does what Escalation doesn't, which is that people drop weapons. And so the end result is when you get put up against the cheese team, what they do is they run around and they just grab all the OP weapons. So they grab Warhammer and they grab Spanker and they grab Energy Sword. And then Fiesta kind of defeats its purpose because what you would hope to get out of it is the exact thing that you said, which is that it would force people to use weapons that they're not commonly used to. So it'd be nice if there was a Fiesta mode that locked you to the 2 weapons that you spawn with each time and force you to use them. Which, by the way, also, could be a path to getting to, some of the things that we've talked about that would give you differentiated experiences in Halo, which is, and eventually I would actually like Call of Duty to get to this at 1.2. But, what I like in wargaming, in tactical simulations, is when you have constraints. Like, obviously, if you ever studied military conflicts, right, we don't send an army into war with everybody with everybody armed with light machine guns, right? Because we can't afford to manufacture that many, right? Countries actually have constraints in what they can do and what they can provide. So there's a standard rifle. So normally, in a fire team construct in the real world, let's call it a fire team of 4, you have 2 people who are a SWAT team. You have 2 people who are outfitted with, the common weapon, right? The, M14 or whatever, maybe even 3. And then you might have 1 person who's armed with a shotgun. And then you might have 1 person who's armed with a light machine gun. And I would actually like to see some game modes, right, in both Halo Infinite and Call of Duty that kind of force you to operate within those tactical constraints, and would, on Tarak in Call of Duty, literally, a 6v6 team deploys and literally all 6 people on the team might have, first of all, will have overkill armed, so they can arm 2 primary weapons. And one of those weapons, sometimes for an entire team, will be sniper rifles, right? And at a certain point that, it's fun dealing with the changes that COD has implemented, but that also, right, gets a little, I don't want to say unrealistic, but it reduces the complexity of the tactical problem. And I know some of the things that you wanted to see in Halo would lean on and borrow some things from COD as well.
Yeah, no, that was kind of my takeaway last night. Like, look, and by the way, the with Escalation, you're right, it is like Call of Duty's gun game. The interesting thing we talked about, you mentioned the Spanker. That's like the weapon you start off with in Escalation. With the final weapons is the oddball, which is kind of interesting. And then because that's not the easiest kill per se, I think in the rotation of weapons you have. And then you also have the what is it? It's like a fog shield or something. What is that like dome that popped up?
Oh yeah, so this is actually interesting, and it's I've long been wondering whether, they instantiated this equipment thing in Halo Infinite, and I've been interested to see if that was going to be it, right? Or if they were going to iterate upon that design. And it's actually neat that they have. So they've added another piece of equipment. And what I hope we'll start seeing is that each season they'll add a new piece of equipment that, again, going back to my previous statement, right, increases the complexity of the tactical problem. And so there's now a fall grenade that it's really interesting that it's not just like the smoke grenade, right, in Halo Infinite, or the smoke drone. The smoke grenade in Call of Duty, or the smoke drone in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which is one of my personal favorite field upgrades. But it actually creates an entire wall of obfuscation, so you can't see in or out of it. And actually, it makes it a more complex technical problem because, do you deploy that thing to hide your own movements? Do you deploy that thing, right before on top of a group that you're assaulting? so that you kind of spring into the fog shield, in an ambush. So I've seen people use it, both ways. So it's super interesting the way they've put it in the game.
Yeah, no, definitely is, and I think when you're in that dome, I don't think you could tell who's who. At least from what I remember, like I couldn't tell like if it was like Slomo or you or
Yeah. I need to record some footage because I think you actually can, and maybe it's only if you're fast enough to like read the name labels. I think you can still see the name labels when you go in there, but it's monochrome. It's all one color. You can't, there were no reds and blues in there. Now there might also be some accessibility features that you could turn on to kind of cheat. And make those things surface too. So I just need to play with it more and record some footage so I can play back what actually goes on in there.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'd be interested to see if that's the case because I when we were playing last night I was like I don't think I can tell who, and I was just swinging the oddball like at that point, just like anyone who walked in or anyone I was next to. So
that's one of the things that I didn't like. It seemed like, and again, this I played the mode one time. It seemed like the oddball didn't have that. What was it? What do they call it? The vampire effect or whatever, where like when you hit somebody, you take health or heal shields or something like that.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem like there were any one shot. So whoever I hit with the oddball, I seem to have to hit them twice. But the problem is when you hit them one time, they get knockback. So you hit them one time, it knocks them back out of your melee range, and then it seemed like I had to like get close to them again to hit them, which just kind of it seems to work against the whole notion of forcing you into melee for that final round.
Yep. And I look and to kind of circle back to Call of Duty. Look, I said this to you, Logic, today. I said, look, I love the gameplay mechanics of Halo. I love the gunplay, but having spent some time with Call of Duty, a lot of time recently with Call of Duty, it's just Halo is missing for me at least. I would like to see them have more weapon customization, more tinkering. I think that's for me like that because like even last night we're getting. I think Slomo was joking around about it, like we were getting we got a shoulder pad. We got one shoulder pad, right? Oh, we got new knee braces. Like those things really don't they don't really do anything for me. It's like, oh, okay, I got an armor piece, I got a interesting looking helmet, but that's not really. It doesn't really keep me engaged, and I look, and this is probably something that would be unpopular with the hardcore Halo fan base, but I say the hell with that. Like, let's. If you're going to make this a live service game, keep the gameplay mechanics, but I think that having weapon customizations where you can tinker with different loadouts. I said tinkle, where you can tinker with different loadouts, and you can bring different loadouts for different maps, different situations, different game modes. I like, and that's the one thing I like about Call of Duty. And I don't use a lot of weapons and different weapons in Call of Duty, but I'm starting to tinker more. Hey, what's up, Falky? I'm starting to tinkle. I can't even talk. Tinker more with Call of Duty and different weapon loadouts. Yes, Slomo.
Yeah,
thank you for that insight, Slomo.
It kind of gives you that kind of Forza Horizon effect, to a certain extent. Maybe Gran Turismo as well. That kind of going into the garage, right, and tinkering around with, in this case, different loadouts, but then also, when you max level weapons in Call of Duty, I say max level for, discussion purposes, there are some certain weapons you actually make them tunable the level before you max them, which is kind of neat, but generally, when you max levels, then you can also then fine tune them, right, with their different attachments that you put on, giving unique feels, right, to loadout builds for specific weapons. But and as you and I talked about, right, that's a part that's kind of the I mean, we appreciate the elegance of the combat in Halo Infinite, but the comment I made with you earlier today was, Halo as a multiplayer game, as a multiplayer franchise, in the Xbox 360 era and beyond, is really just kind of a, stick with me, right? Is really just kind of an Uber LAN game, right? It's just, we took the game that was on the LAN, and we made it globally available. But all the other kind of design things that come along with a large scale multiplayer PvP game, didn't necessarily happen right in Halo. There's not stat tracking right in the way that we are accustomed to in Call of Duty. There are some hooks and anchors that make your persona as a combatant in Call of Duty a little bit more persistent, right? And it sticks with you. Same thing is true in Destiny. And so I think as I look back over the 20 years of Halo, I start to question, I'm starting to hit this point of realization where I say, I don't know that forklifting the LAN game, right, from its 2002 origins, and slapping a battle pass on it really equates to fully maturing a game into a game as a service model. I start to question whether or not there are other things that should have come along with that to really get to a point where that's really an engaging and super interesting business model, right? And as you mentioned, right, that leaves us then at the point where, while the combat of Halo Infinite is still elegant and great in its implementation, it doesn't have the hooks and tethers that keep me coming back to it with the same volume and the same intensity that I do, with Call of Duty, or in the past, Destiny 2. So it's just going to be kind of interesting how they, evolve the franchise, evolve the service, from here, given that that's where they are right now.
Yeah. And then Destiny allows some customization of weapons too. And it also has a variety of different types of weapons. And I always looked at Destiny as kind of the evolution of Halo. But yeah, no, I'm glad that I went back and started playing Call of Duty, because it just gave me a different perspective. With Halo, and what I think might be missing with Halo, especially as Halo as a live service game. So,
yeah, but I will also it took breaking through the veil of the maps, because the new maps in Call of Duty were the sticking point. I'm fine. I was fine with them taking the cooldown, or really in this implementation, really the heat up of perks, right? So that you don't just have all perks functional from jump, and you have to kind of earn them over time in the match. That graded against a lot of people in the Call of Duty community. I was fine with that. I was fine with a lot of the other changes. I was super interested in the new weapons platform, but God, great Scott, man, a lot of the UI implementation and a lot of the quality of life stuff was just bad at launch. But the thing that graded against me the most was just the maps and how that drove the cheese levels up. But Warzone 2.0 launching helped kind of drain the swamp, if you will, of a lot of those players. And eventually I've come to appreciate what they've been trying to accomplish with the maps and see the value in them. But yeah, it took getting through that veil to get to a point where, I was, happy with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and in comparison to Halo Infinite, right? Sitting at a point where I would rather put time into that than Halo Infinite.
Oh, I tell you what, man. Speaking of Call of Duty maps, the camping is so bad at times, man. So bad, like blatantly bad.
Yeah, and I mean, I've just because I've played 3 of the 4 last iterations, to a great extent. I'm not okay with that, but I'll just say I'm a little numbed to that. But but the change has been, with the larger scale maps, it's like I said, the thing I've come to appreciate about it is, if you go back to Black Ops Cold War, the problem with snipers there were so many maps that it was absolutely pointless to take a sniper rifle, right? And if you are I wouldn't call myself a completionist, but still I'm like, okay, here's these weapons that I still feel obligated to level, and I'm still interested in leveling. There weren't a lot of places there were so many maps you would get in the cycle that, there wasn't a lot of places to do that. Using a sniper rifle on Nuketown, in certain cases, wasn't particularly effective. And then
you didn't always backyard.
What's that?
If you're laying prone in one of the backyards.
Right.
In Nuketown,
right.
That's what I used to do. I used to lay prone sometimes.
And on Nuketown, the problem is if you lay prone in a backyard, down the left and right sides of that map, past the two houses, there wasn't necessarily a clear lane right from the end of the map. There were cover shots, and there were things that obfuscated your view. Whereas, on Tarak now you have super long lanes, and on Valdera Museum you have super long sniper lanes, and yes, that does encourage the camping more, but that also encourages, again, part of what's in my head is trying to get back to a little bit more of, I hate to use the term realism, but I'll just call it increasing the complexity of the tactical problem, is that encourages you to not hang out, right, when you're crossing an open space, like to get the hell where you need to go, right, and to be careful and cautious about moving across the map. As you and I have talked about, right, using changes in your movement, right, jockeying your pace. There are, if you study militaries, there are certain ways that fire teams move. They move, and that's driven by this exact reason, right? Because you only want to move for so many seconds in a straight line, in an upright position, in the event that there are snipers around. And if you go into a team mode, and actually I played some ranked last night, right? That actually, even with ranked with no comms, the degree to which people move together to try and defeat that and mitigate that risk or defeat that tactical advantage is pretty impressive. I think, unfortunately, I think with COD is, if you had an actual full squad of 6 on comms, I think it's a pretty improved experience overall in comparison to past versions. With, I see every once in a while I see squads moving around the map, like in Halo Infinite, we talk about people who move around in 2s, but I've seen people moving around in 3s, whole squads of 4. I've seen whole squads, right, crossing the map and locking things down as a squad, using, converging points of fire and things like that. So, I think some of the changes, have some traction and have some point and are maybe enjoyable for some people.
Yes, I agree with you, Slomo. I'm not a fan of that museum map either, man. I'm not a fan. Not a fan.
Yeah, it's tough. But if you're trying to level sniper rifles, it's awesome.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's great for that. But look, I've enjoyed so far what I've played, the new maps of Halo Infinite Season 3. But again, just one of the things I'd again like to see is more weapon customization. Who knows if they'll ever do that, but one can hope. I do want to move on to Starfield, because Starfield, well, we have a release date finally. We have a release date, Hamp. We have a release date finally. So, but what's interesting? The way they announced this thing was kind of interesting, because it was like, I feel like for this game and a lot of this, I feel like this is the one game that it's the first current gen exclusive, AAA exclusive from Microsoft. And I feel like, with that being said, like, that there'd be a little more, I guess, buzz or more marketing behind that announcement. And it was just like a YouTube video and Todd Howard and talking about, hey, we're going to show more at E3 this year. And you see some, people playing Starfield in the background. I don't know, man. I feel like, I don't know, man. It just didn't seem like, considering like what I view as an important game, and the first Look, and it's Todd Howard's first game in God knows how many years, and we always hear about how this is a huge undertaking by Todd and company. I just feel like the way they announced the release date really wasn't, didn't really pack a punch per se. But anyhow, the release date is official now, September 6th of 2023 this year. This comes after Microsoft had said at the previous E3, we're going to show you games that you'll be playing in the next year.
Bro,
Yes,
I gotta get you to pump the brakes.
Okay.
I just realized it. I think we should caveat whether or not we feel that that's really the official release date, because there's been 2 or 3 official release dates at this point, all of which have been missed. So, it's as official as it can be, I guess, with pending holiday window delays still to see if they unfold.
Yeah, I just look for the marketing perspective. I'm just surprised that there wasn't more like noise about this. Like, this is your first big AAA game from one of the publishers you acquired. This game has been on a lot of people's radars. It's Todd Howard. It's Bethesda. It is Starfield. It's this new IP. And you look, it was the initial release date was November, I think 11th of 2022. I think was the first one. Yes, November 11th, 2022 was the first official release date. Then it gets delayed. Then Microsoft comes out and tells us, hey, we're going to show you games at this event, and these are going to be the games that you're playing in the next 12 months, something we've never done. Starfield was part of that. And this has clearly gone past the 12-month period that Microsoft had, set the expectation for. And that's also kind of my, I was tweeting this out today, and I don't disagree with anyone who, I get delays happen. Like, that's not even the point. And I totally agree that that it's, I'm okay with delays happening. It's best to have, games, be delayed rather than, release in a bad state. Like, I get that. But there's some differences here. The fact that Microsoft had an initial release date, showed this game at an event, said that this is a game we'll be playing in 12 months. That 12-month period it's not going to fall within that 12-month window now, and it's going to be in fact September. And like you and I have talked about this, Logic, like that's part of the thing that I know Slow-Mo's talked about it a lot. We've talked about this a lot. You've talked about this a lot. This kind of this management of their production pipeline. And just setting, like, Microsoft just seems to just do a lot of talking, and they don't seem to be hitting their deliverables. And I said this on Twitter today, and of course people were like, "Well, BRAP, look, again, I understand that delays happen. My point is not that delays don't happen. My point is that that Microsoft tends to set expectations with their fan base. I mean, you hear it every year. Phil, we hear you. Aaron Greenberg, this is the best year this is our biggest game show ever. And those expectations seem to just fall flat. And that's my point. And you look at, like, what the other platforms are doing. Nintendo and Sony. I mean, look, as much as people, and I'm one of them, I'd like to see have a Sony event. We haven't seen one in quite a while. But they keep quiet and, like, look, they deliver the goods. Nintendo does the same thing. But I feel like with Microsoft, there's just a lot of talk, a lot of "we hear you," a lot of "hey, these are the games you're going to be playing in the next 12 months." Oh, by the way, Starfield's not going to be in the next 12 months. Like, they just set these expectations and they just don't deliver. This is a second. And look, I get it. I know people are like, "Oh, well, Brap, what's the big deal? It's not the end of the world." Well, that's not the point. The point isn't if it's the end of the world. The point is that this is a pattern that I've noticed with Microsoft and how they manage their production pipeline, how they manage expectations. And Logic, I went back to, and my thought process, I went back to that I don't know if it was a tweet or something you pulled an article, the guy from Intel. I forget his name now. Do you remember his name?
Oh, Tom Peterson.
Tom Peterson. And what did Tom say? Because I forget. Something about like judge us on our, not what we say, but what we do. Is that kind of like what he was saying?
Yeah, I mean, what he was talking about was just kind of the change in the vector of Intel marketing. That at a certain point in the pre-rollout of Arc, they said, look, let's stop trying to convince people by talking about it. Let's just shut up and do the work. And this to me is kind of analogous to what Hello Games did with No Man's Sky. At a certain point, they're just like, look, we're not going to convince people by denying, right, and pleading our case. We just need to put our heads down and do the work. And so Tom Peterson's, quote, I don't have his direct quote in front of me. This was from an interview set piece that he did on the Full Nerd podcast, which is the PC Mag. I can't remember if it's PC Mag or PC World. I think it's PC World crew, and that crew is headed by Gordon Mong, who has been, was the former hardware reviews editor over at Maximum PC, and I think for a while editor in chief there. For anybody who remembers, the great publications of Future Media back when Gary Whitta was editor in chief at PC Gamer. And he said, look, we're not gonna convince you by talking. So we're gonna shut up. We're gonna deliver product. We're gonna iterate, right, and improve right when our software doesn't perform, and we know that there are things that we need to fix. And then we're gonna talk about what we've delivered and what we have done, because as I often say, those are the things that are irrefutable. It doesn't make sense, right, to do a lot of pom-pomming and cheerleading on hopes, dreams, and future promises. That does not matter. What matters right now, if you're evaluating the business and looking at the business and trying to learn about the business, is looking at the track record of the publishers over the first two and a half years, I guess, at this point of console generation 9. And you can stack the games that have been released and how those games have commercially performed and how those games have been critically viewed. And then you can assess, if you're keeping a tally sheet, right, of what would you recommend to a person who comes to you and says, hey, I'm interested in buying a console. Should I buy an Xbox or a PlayStation? You could base it on that if you were going to base your recommendation on quantifiable objective evidence and not on cap.
And that was kind of my point. Somebody had retweeted I'm trying to find the tweet that I put out there. And that was kind of like let me just piggyback on what you said. So that was part of kind of what I was getting at today on Twitter. But the other part was I think I said this to you earlier. I do feel like, hey, talk about hopes and dreams. Part of me thinks that Microsoft, and just the way they handled the announcement of the release date of Starfield, that they know they could just do this. Because, look, I mean, if you look at, they interact with people in the community, and this is very different from what Sony does. Like people are like, oh, it's great. Microsoft interacts with their customers. Okay. Jesus, Google Poll. Oh my God. Oh boy. I'm sorry, Logic. I'm reading it. I should close the chat. I lost my train of thought now.
Yeah, that dude is a bred and born member of the volunteer PR and marketing department of Microsoft. I mean, who would expend $80,000 of a game's marketing budget when you have people like Gogopol out there doing your work for free?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, just doing free marketing, and that's my point. I feel like Microsoft they know they can do this. In my opinion, I think they're like, you know what? We know our fan base. We have the goodwill of our fan base, and that's enough. Let's we can sell them on the studio acquisitions and all this stuff that's coming in the pipeline, and we have time. I mean, and again, every year I go back to what Phil Spencer says: we hear you, we didn't deliver. This is our biggest show ever, the most games. We're going to show you. Gogopol, like I don't have any issue with you criticizing Sony, but when you're using when you're just being like hyperbolic about it, and you're just like making shit up, that's not a criticism. Anyhow,
yeah, and I mean, in the studios you mentioned are not Sony studios, so
yeah, I mean, like, look, no company is perfect. We're aware of that.
Yeah, let me just put it in modern Twitter terms. When you go after a third party publisher and say that because they're aligned with Sony or they do a lot of work for Sony, and therefore attempt to ascribe their shortfalls and deficiencies and problems to the platform owner, that's what kids call a reach.
Yes, children call that a reach. Children also use whataboutisms a lot too. But that's my thing. Like I just feel like they know that, because if you look, there's a lot of those podcasts that do a lot of marketing about here's what's coming in the pipeline. We're going to get COD. We're going to get this game. We got this game coming to give it. We got this game. We got Fable coming. We got this and that. I mean, that's great. I mean, those are certainly things to look forward to, but but there's no accountability. I don't see any accountability here. And this isn't like a new issue. We talked about the issues with releasing content. Like, this has been an issue that goes back last generation. I mean, honestly, I don't think Microsoft has really been peak Microsoft Xbox or peak Xbox since the 360. Granted, they're in a much better position now.
No, I mean, this generation is, moderately better than last generation. But there's slippage. And this is what we talked about a little bit today. And, in the wake of this thing going down, and then the conversation you and I had earlier today, I tried to, overlay some comparisons to things I've experienced and gone through in the software management space. And that's again, kind of what is different about the discussion that we try and have on here. It's not a matter of approval ratings for each of these consoles. It's about kind of pulling apart, at least for me, each of these things is kind of a business case study. And I talked last year, right, about kind of when you fail, right, when you shortfall on software deliveries, how you have to manage this notion of a return to green plan. And I mean return to green in the program management and in the business unit leadership sense, not return to Xbox green, and you return to green plan. And I talked about, well, if this were me looking at the commercial space, right, to restore my faith, again, and I'm looking at it through a software development lens, I need to see a roadmap, right, and. I think I encountered a lot of pushback in the chat about, they're not going to do a roadmap. They don't need to do blah, blah, blah. And what did they do? That's exactly what they did, is they showed a roadmap. That the roadmap was shorter than I wanted my outlook, than I wanted. I wanted to see a chart with all the development studios and what they were working on out over, probably at least a 3-year time span. But what they did was they said, look, there's the roadmap for 12 months. And they did what I would have expected, kind of on a sliding scale, right? The further out your roadmap is projected, the less your commitment comes, right, to making all of those deliveries, especially for the things that are in the out years window. choosing to make it only a 12-month roadmap, right? My view of that, again, from a software delivery perspective, is that that should have come with a more emphatic commitment to making those deliveries. And what to me is problematic in turning the corners since that was put out is that then you come into the January showcase, right? And you don't provide a release date for Forza Motorsport, right? Which, as a Forza Motorsport fan, is to me is a huge problem. It's been a problem since 2020, when the whole reason why Forza Motorsport wasn't there at launch was sidestepped and silently not spoken to, and how that behavior has continued over the 2-year time frame. But you don't give a release date for Forza Motorsport, and then again you sidestep the Starfield release date thing in the ramp up to that showcase. Now, the one thing I'll mention is, I guess at the end of the day I have to lay all of that at Microsoft's feet, but I will say with the Starfield thing, I got to get a little bit of that butter to Todd Howard and the Bethesda behavior and the things that studio, I've kind of always had a nit with that publisher and that studio in particular, and the way that in very similar to Final Fantasy fashion, there's things that I feel like they've always been able to get away with because of the rabidity of their fan base. And I was very happy to see a lot of that come to a halt, at least to a certain percentage, with Fallout 76. And I know that they got better and got good with Fallout 76, but they still fumbled that ball out of the blocks. And that finally shined a light on the rats in the corner of things that were problematic in the Bethesda fabric that I felt had been going on for a very long time, that no one held them accountable for from a voice track perspective. So, I mean, it's to me, it's just the unfolding of the story just continues to be problematic. And I know that there were a lot of people who said to you on Twitter today, well, delays happen. Like you said, I get that. However, this isn't the first delay, right? And this is this is Todd Howard's. It's a pinnacle moment that he's approaching in his career. Maybe that's a reason why he keeps kicking it down the road and delaying it. But again, I go with the marketing and the PR optics of, jumping up on a table, dancing a jig, setting a trash can on fire, and playing that game with that November release date, with that, emotionally heartstring pulling, release date and the marketing around it, and then just casually saying, yep, no, it's not actually going to come out in September. It's next year. And saying it's next year within the 12-month window, right? Strike 2. And then now here, strike 3, casually saying, it's now going to be September of the holiday season, right, or September of the following year. All those things are problematic. And again, if you're a new customer trying to figure out what console you want to buy, I think unquestionably causes a person to be concerned about a level of commitment from the publisher to deliver games to that $500 platform and piece of plastic that you're thinking about buying.
And that was really my point. Not that delays don't happen, but again, it's interesting. Like I said, the issue, and I tweeted this. The issue with, let me find this tweet because I want to read this real quick. What I said. Let me find this real quick. Yeah, I said, look, 12 months has become 15 months. The reason Xbox can do this is because the Xbox influencers, and many, not all, in the community do free marketing for Xbox without an ounce of accountability when the brand misses. Xbox is making it off of goodwill and not actual deliverables. And that's where people are like, well, what's the big deal? Delays happen all the time. And I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that. And maybe I should have prefaced it with, in my opinion, because it is my opinion. I'm not saying that, I'm saying in my opinion. But that's what I was saying. And that's kind of my point. Like I see a lot of the, there's just not accountability there. And it's the same broken record, the same. If you could look this stuff up. Go back and listen to the things that Phil has said, the things that Aaron has said, the messaging, and the expectation of 12 months. Yeah, I'm not making that stuff up. And I'm also thinking too in game logic. I'm not a software developer. It's not my line of work, but I'm around individuals who do that work, and I'm around program managers, project managers, and I hire those individuals. And I got to be honest with you, Logic, like when you're not meeting deliverables to your client and there's delays, there's usually some tough conversations. There's some heads rolling. I'm not getting the sense that that's happening at Xbox.
Well, right, and what I said earlier was that this caused me to try and find analogs back in my own past history, and the thing that I thought most about was the time of my career where part of what I was doing was delivering software for large publicly owned utilities, right, in California and Texas. Right, in California, a state which has, I want to say, I can't remember the two numbers. Is it 12% or 17% of the U.S. population? I think it's maybe 17% in California and 12% in Texas. I can't remember, but those are. Right, those are software deliveries, right? So yeah, I mean, we're talking about 40 million people, I think, in California, and so that's at a swag, that's roughly 2/3 to half of the Xbox user base, right? And the notion that had I missed those deliveries, right, that large publicly owned utilities were counting on for the manner in which they distributed electricity to all their customers, like that. I don't know that I would have gotten a shot to make a return to green plan, right, for recovering from that. It's not exactly the same, but my point is that in instances where I've been doing commercial software, and the marketing spiel was that we would provide 2 major releases each year, right? Again, when you have a large customer base that's having dependencies on that software, that's making plans around that software, when you hit a point where you think you're not going to make it, that's not just a casual conversation. You don't just casually convey, to people utilizing your software, not a big deal, right? It's not going to be out. And so, the analog to a game console is, again, I go back to, people are making decisions on where they're going to make their investment. You only have the console for a limited amount of time. And so if you care about your money, if you quantify and you put metrics around it, the thing you think of, again, $500 investment, 7-year life cycle of the console. What I'm concerned about is, how much content is delivered to that console, at what level and what volume. And these are instances where, again, like I point to, questioning the commitment, right, of those deliverables. The iPhone is a huge product, and one of the things, again, going back to a case study and the people who shout this down or, say it's irrelevant, software gets delayed. You look at the iPhone as a case study, right? And you look at the fact that what do a lot of those customers constantly point to, right? The reliability of new iOS updates, right? On a pretty steady drumbeat, right? Without misses. And you then understand that there are customers who accept that and look at that as a thing of value. They look at that as a differentiating factor in purchases that they make. And so if that consistency of delivery is a differentiating factor for consumers in a technology product space, then again, we wonder why there isn't an emphasis on that differentiating factor, right, in the Xbox camp, I would say.
Yeah, no, and that's my point, and that's my overall point. And again, I'm not saying delays don't happen, but it's what you just mentioned, man. Like it and again, I mean, something to me, again, you can go back, you can listen to Phil Spencer, you could pull up his interviews, you can pull up the videos where he says we've heard you, we haven't delivered. It just at this point it seems like a broken record, and like I feel like if the manage of expectations here too. I just don't think they've done a good job of that. It's fine. I understand delays happen, but I don't think we should set the expectation, especially when you've had some issues in, delivering, games, first party games at a I don't think if you're gonna make that. My point is, if you're gonna promise that, if you're gonna set that expectation, you have to deliver. You just have to. So anyhow, do you have any other thoughts on Starfield, Hamp?
Not on Starfield specifically, but I'm going to pick at what Gogol Pose is saying. Not because I think it's at all rational or of any value whatsoever. Your line of reasoning is pretty much out the window. But just the notion of it, again, going back to the notion of, as a case study. You talk about the individual release state of Starfield, right? Is the game buggy? Do you release it not working, or do you delay it? Right. And again, the talk back to, what was the comment here? Wait and see. It'll be a different story in 5 years. I don't know. That was somewhere in here. And again, the point of the conversation, and maybe why we're having a different conversation, is, what a certain set of consumers are going to look at, and what, I myself am personally looking at, right, how these companies perform in their analog to what I do. And how I might need to manage my business is, I look at what they've done and what they've delivered. And again, Microsoft has a huge amount of capital. They have a huge amount of legacy customers. They have a huge amount of people who are just, who, like BRAP said, maybe they don't have care or concern about what's been delivered to this point. But like in my business space, I don't have that. I don't have people who are going to say, it's a mea culpa, no big deal. So I have to look at, right, what lessons learned do I want to pick up, right, and employ. And so again, what I look at is what's been delivered over 2.5 years. I often have conversations with my teams about, like, look, when one of you guys as a team is doing well, and one of you guys as a team, or one part of my team, is not doing well, right? There's certain ways I have to jockey resources. I have to flood resources over to a thing that's doing bad, or I have to double down on a thing that's doing really well, because I know that the thing that's going bad is uncontrollable, and I need to push hardest on the things that I do well. And so all of this is a matter of, what loyalty are you engendering to new customers? What encouragement are you giving to new customers, buying into your ecosystem, and what lessons are the most valuable? And right, and the lessons that are the most valuable that I've seen over the last 2.5 years, has been, at least, partly, I definitely won't say to the 100th percentile, because Sony has made some missteps as well, is the way Sony is going about managing their production pipeline, right, from a software development perspective, and less so, what Xbox is doing.
Yep. Let me get a super chat here from Senu.com with the $2.99 super chat. Says ABK and Sony Interactive Entertainment has an NDA. Did Lulu just break NDA? I'm not sure if Lulu broke NDA, but she broke something.
Yeah, I mean, if there were NDAs, I mean, I think those were broken a long time ago, right? I mean, Spencer has said what he said about the deals that, have been offered to Sony. Jim Ryan has come back and said, I wasn't going to speak about this publicly because I thought this was a closed conversation, business dealings between two corporations. But let me say this. So that seems to indicate to me that, the rules have been thrown out the window with regards to NDAs on some of these deals. And as we've said before, C-level executives and whoever and lawyers are doing what they need to do to influence hearts and minds, and attempt to influence regulatory bodies to find decisions that are in their favor and in the favor of their business and in the favor of their profitability. Yeah.
I mean, for those who don't know, maybe didn't see this, but Lulu Messervy, who's the chief communications officer for Activision, said that the CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment answered that question. It was actually, all right, let me read this whole tweet. So basically saying, why do they keep refusing?
What are we here talking about?
What's up, Forte? We're talking about Lulu Messerve, who tweeted.
Oh my God! Let
She's
that die.
she's doing the Lord's work for Activision right now. She basically said,
Let that woman do the Lord's work, man. Why are we talking about? Well, never mind. I know what we're talking about. It's boring out here.
So she said, basically, the CEO of SI, Jim Ryan, basically said this to the EU regulatory body that I don't want a new Call of Duty deal. I just want to block your merger. So that's what she said, and that's kind of what Senu.com is referring to with his super chat. So again, wouldn't surprise me if he said that. I think if you, at least as it relates to gaming, if you weren't paying attention to Epic Games versus Apple, some of the similar back and forth, and things that you mentioned, Game Logic, that they're trying to influence the minds of consumers, regulatory bodies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah. Also, Microsoft did confirm that they offered Call of Duty to Sony with a which would allow them to launch the Call of Duty or have Call of Duty on PlayStation Plus as well. Sony's response to that was, no, they did, but it would come with unreasonable royalties that we're not willing to pay. That could essentially increase the price of the game for us and not be in the best interest of our consumers on our platform. I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what they said. So that's the latest on the ABK deal. And again, I'm only talking about it because it happened today, and I thought it was interesting that Lulu put Jim Ryan on blast. So Lulu's getting paid big bucks. She's getting paid the big bucks. So, any thoughts, Logic or Forte, on that on the ABK update?
Who cares? No.
All right, Forte, who cares? And Logic?
No, nothing to add.
All right, so
when this deal is over.
I know, right? Soon, Forte, soon. By the way, Forte, how are you enjoying? I don't even know what it is. The new Destiny 2 season or DLC.
Destiny servers are down right now, so I can't tell you how it is right now.
Oh, that's why you're here.
No.
Yes.
I had inventory at work today.
Oh, you did?
I just got home like 15 minutes ago.
Oh yeah, you know what? I didn't get a chance to return your call. I saw you called.
Yeah, you called me, and I returned your call, and you put me on. You ignored my call.
Not on
It's
purpose.
cool,
Not on purpose, sir. No, I was gonna tell you. I saw. So you got the DualSense Edge in then?
Sure did.
Did you just get it in today?
Yeah, today.
Oh, okay. Because I picked one up from Walmart about be 2 weeks this weekend.
I just got it today.
Nice, yeah. So I saw that. I was like, that's why I was calling. I already got one. But Forte, I would have bought one for you had I not found one at Walmart.
I bought one today. I told myself I wouldn't, but I did.
Yeah. What do you think?
They got me.
So wait, Forte, you bought the DualSense Edge?
I did.
Yeah. Why? I mean, what are you planning on playing with it?
That's a good question. I had a warranty on a second Elite controller that I had just sitting here that I wasn't using. It was the one that I was using for my PC, and it had the right bumper was sticking on it. So I was just sitting on it, waiting for them to have the Edge controller because I already have an Elite controller for my Xbox that I could just use on my PC. And I was like, I can use this to go towards the price of that Edge controller, pay $20 more for it. And that's what I did. So I really didn't pay for it. My warranty covered it. But the only reason I got it is because I just like having the buttons on the back of the controller. Even if I'm not really playing shooters over there, even when I play God of War and stuff, like on PC, I use my Elite controller, and I do use all of the buttons on the back of my controller, even playing that game. I'm just used to it at this point. So it just gave me the fact that I didn't have to pay for it, because I had a warranty was the only reason I got it. If I had to actually buy it or $200, I wouldn't have. I would just go with what I already had.
I will say, I think I have stumbled across a reason, finally, a reason for like the existence of that controller. I guess there is a Gran Turismo like online like competitive community, and so I guess I could see why.
Are you going to actually play Gran Turismo competitively?
I play Gran Turismo. I don't play any online racing games competitively. But I'm just saying it seems like there's an addressable market out there. I've been trying to dig through in my head what the solution looking for a problem was ever for, but
I mean, there's one for anybody on PlayStation that pretty much plays a shooter. So even if it's not a first party, one of the bigger player bases in, for Fortnite is PlayStation, and same thing for Call of Duty. So even if it's not a first party reason to buy it, if you're playing on PlayStation and you're not playing with one of those type of controllers, I'm not saying you're at a disadvantage, because you're not at a disadvantage. It's more of ease of use when you're using one of those controllers, and it kind of gives you a perceived point of advantage in it. So I always thought there was a reason. It's just that I don't play shooters or anything like that on PlayStation. I always play them on Xbox or something like that. So that was the main reason why I just wasn't going to get it. But like I said, opportunity presented itself for me to get it without having to pay any monetary gains for it. So I took advantage of it.
But my problem is those. So first of all, for those games, right? This is where I talk about, like, to me, the differentiation, right, in value and performance between a normal Xbox Series X and S controller versus the Elite controller is a pretty huge delta. The difference between a DualSense and the DualSense Edge, I don't feel like there's my perception of the leap isn't as big.
So what do you think? That's what I'm thinking. So what is it that you think the inherent biggest difference outside of, like, for the Xbox Series X and X controller versus the Elite?
I mean, two of the things. I guess two, three, maybe. One of them is with the Elite, and it's a thing that a lot of people sleep on, is the programmability of it.
I agree with that.
In the app, that's one. Two is obviously the back paddle buttons. Three is for me, one of the hugest things is the configurable sensitivity. And so that, being able to change the throw distance on the L and R trigger buttons is a key thing that I use. And then the big thing for me is the torque on the analog sticks. So on the controller, you can actually tighten that up so that the resistance is much higher, which increases your precision.
Yep, so I agree with that.
So one of my big things is, with the things that you mentioned, is I feel like those people who are playing those competitive shooters on Sony would be served 87, 92% as well, just playing with a regular DualSense. But here's the other key thing, and at this point I want to call in my man BRAP, who knows. BRAP, what is the first thing that the Call of Duty guides that are out there tell you to do with all those features on the DualSense to make your gameplay as competitive as possible in Call of Duty?
Turn them off.
Turn off the rumble.
Turn off the rumble.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Turn off all the haptics. Turn all the
haptics. Turn it off. Yeah.
Well, that's the main reason why when people talk about
Forte, real quick. Let me Forte.
Yeah,
go ahead. Let me interrupt you because I don't want to miss this question. This is for you. Falky wants to know. Can you ask Forte if the updated Thrustmaster racing wheel bundles are in yet?
No, we haven't got them yet. I'll DM them and let them know when they finally do come in. But yeah, we haven't got them yet.
Okay, sorry about that. Go ahead, Forte.
No, but I was going to say I agree with that 100% because that was like the biggest thing that I always knocked about the DualSense controller, because outside of playing God of War or like Returnal or something, I play predominantly shooters and stuff, and I would never get the benefits of any of those features they talk about. None of that. I'm not gonna feel the throw and the different recoil patterns of a SMG versus of the different SMGs and assault rifles inside of Call of Duty or even Fortnite or anything like that. Just because I don't even remember the last time I played with rumble on my controller. Like, it's literally disabled inside the app for Xbox. Like, my Elite controller hasn't had rumble, I don't think, since I've had an Elite controller. And I know when I switched out one time, I had to do a warranty swap, and I had it disabled in game, but I didn't have it disabled in the app. But that's before I found out you could disable it in the app too. I went and put a new controller on, and I was getting rumble in the game, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" It scared me. I was like, "Yo, I'm not used to this." And so yeah, I agree with that. Now, I did play with it when it came to like God of War and stuff like that. That was really, really cool, really, really immersive and stuff. But yeah, you're missing one key feature of that controller by not taking advantage of that rumble, or the haptic feedback, I should say.
Yeah, I turned it off.
But that's why I said they should have made that controller. That's why that was also one of the criticisms I had about that controller when it came out, because I said it's cool that it's available, but I feel like that controller could have been $50 cheaper, or at least $30 cheaper, if they would have removed that from that controller, or at least sell a version of that controller without it, because who they're marketing that controller to, that's a feature those people will never use.
Yeah, well, so before I talk about it, I will say, right, with the DualSense, those haptic features, I did leave them on when I played the Call of Duty Black Ops and Modern Warfare single player campaigns.
Oh yeah,
right?
I did too. Single player, yeah.
And they feel awesome, right? And so I think the difference. I mean, one reason why maybe they didn't, offer a version without that stuff in there is, often what I come back to with PlayStation peripherals, right, and this holds true for PSVR too, right? There are things Sony makes for a fairly rabid and consumption heavy fan base, right? Mm-hmm. Because they can, and because if there's a notion that a thing is premium, I often refer to this as the Apple effect, right? So a DualSense Edge, if somebody is using it for competitive play, but also plays, single player games, right? Then you probably want one controller that does it all, even if you're going to turn that stuff off. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, and then for your people who buy a PlayStation 5 and just play Call of Duty and Madden, maybe those people, go buy something different, or I don't know, maybe you don't target it at that market. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Yeah, I'll say that. Like, so far from just playing Call of Duty, I prefer the Elite 2 controller over the PlayStation Edge. And I'll tell you why. I like the feeling of the left and right trigger buttons more so than I do the Edge. I just feel like with the Edge, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it doesn't have the weight to it, I guess. It might be the only way I could describe it. And I just feel like I don't know. I just like the feeling of the trigger buttons on the Elite for shooters.
I agree with that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a great it's still a nice control. I mean, for the PlayStation, it's probably it's probably one of the best. It would be probably the best, in my opinion, the best.
I'm just happy they actually made it, because I feel like it was a crying shame that they didn't have their own version of their in-house Elite controller, where, I mean, I understand letting third parties like Scuff and stuff like do that, but I always felt like they should have had their own, especially since Microsoft and Xbox did such a good job. I mean, we could talk about the build quality all day of that thing, but at least it was something that a lot of people wanted. And I'm just happy that PlayStation finally did it. And I do think that people that like multi-console owners, like people that have an Xbox and a PlayStation, I do think that controller is going to sell pretty decently. to a it's going to find its market and stuff. It's going to find its niche. But like I said, the one thing that I will say that I agree with Ham on is the fact that it's some of those features just don't go along with the physiology of what that controller is. Like, it's kind of going against itself. It's like, you know, it's more of a tournament style controller for people that like to play games. Like, not saying you can't play standard games with that controller, but that controller is geared towards the competitive side of what people are when it comes to, like, you know, shooters and games like that. And some of the features just don't kind of cross over.
Yeah.
In that space, at least.
Yeah. No, like, you're right. Like, you're right. Like, the haptic just doesn't work in competitive shooters.
I wish I would. Yeah. I wish I would lose a gunfight because my controller decided to jam. Are you serious? Can you imagine your gun jamming in a 1v1 for in a tournament or just anything? Like, I would lose my mind, bro. My controller I would break that controller before it broke itself if that happened to me.
Yeah.
Say that is crazy, but
yeah,
I'm glad it's here though.
Yeah, no, it's a nice looking controller for sure.
Yeah, I like it. It looks like a DualSense controller, honestly.
Yeah,
literally doesn't look no different. Same size and everything.
Yep. So,
wish it was all black though, but okay.
That's going to be the second iteration of that controller.
Ooh, don't say that. They're going to make it in different colors. Like, it took Xbox 10 years. It felt like it took Xbox 5 years to give us the ability to do design labs on that Elite controller.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot they just started doing that. Yep.
They just started it. They announced it at E3 last year, and it launched this September. So past September. So.
Yep. That's right. Yeah.
Long enough.
Yeah. So that's all I have for topics tonight. First of all, I want to give a big thank you to everyone in the live chat. Really appreciate it. Please do, if you ever hit that like button. If you haven't done so, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. Also want to give a big shout out to Slomo B Money, who couldn't make it tonight. Did see Slomo in the chat. And give a big shout out to our guest, Game Logic, and Gaming Forte, always a pleasure. You have a podcast tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll keep people in the loop. We might have to move it due to some work-related stuff with some of the panel, but we'll let people know early tomorrow. But as of right now, yeah, DPS podcast will be tomorrow night, 9 p.m. on Slomo Backslap's channel. Make sure you follow the official Twitter account or follow our individual accounts at Gaming Forte or at Slomo Backslap. Or DPS podcast _, and you'll get the information on when the show is going to be, if we're going to move it or anything for tomorrow. But outside of that, great to be here. Great to just jump in, and I'm glad I missed the Starfield conversation. Thank God. But
why are you glad that you missed that?
Because that news, the only reason Starfield is being blown up as much as it is, like, you want to know what that news for Starfield was today? It was basically to give content creators something to talk about. That's what that was. We're literally the showcase is until June. The game's not till September. We already knew that there was a really good chance that this game was not going to make it in that 12-month window that Microsoft set for themselves. And that became apparently clear when Redfall got its May release date. Because I was like, there's no way that Starfield's coming out before that, even though a lot of people were thinking that March and April were, really good months. But then they announced Minecraft Legends, and that's in April. And I was like, well, they're not going to announce it and bring it out. And people thought it was going to be one of those day and date things. Like, we're going to announce it June 11th at the Xbox showcase, and we're going to say it's available now. That never was going to happen. And July, and then you want to promote the game. Starfield's it's too big of a game for them not to at least give it some type of promotion. Now people are going to say Xbox sucks at promotion, and I'm going to be like, yeah, they do, but Bethesda's the one that's going to promote this game, and they don't suck at promotion. So I always knew that this game wasn't going to come out before July. It was just if it was going to be a true holiday game or it was going to be an August and September game. So I'm not really shocked by the fact that this is going down the way it's going down. But a lot of people and their takes on it is, I mean, I understand it. You know, everybody, we already knew once they announced that this game wasn't coming out in that 12-month window, that pretty much was going to be the conversation piece throughout today and probably throughout this weekend, even knowing, honestly, who really cares. I just need Microsoft to drop games at this point. I don't really care when it comes. I just need to know that it's coming.
Pause.
This announcement... And pause. And this announcement was basically just to give people something to talk about because we still know nothing more than we knew before. The only difference is, well, I won't say that. We know a release date and we know when the showcase is, but we still don't know anything else on top of that. We got to still wait till June anyway. So it wasn't like they gave us this grandiose trailer that said, oh, get hyped for this day and all this other stuff. Like, no, they just kind of showed you stuff you already seen before and said that it was going to be a date in September. So I don't know. I'm kind of over Microsoft and their marketing ways of these games and the way they tell people this stuff. I'm not falling for that stuff no more. I'm just at this point. I just want to play the game at this point. I really could care less about any of this other stuff.
Yeah,
but Forza, you knew in air quotes that God of War Ragnarok wasn't coming out last year.
No. That was more of a big guess on my point that Sony at that point had never released a game in the holiday season. That was a first party title. That's what I always I told people I could be wrong about this. I was like, this will be, because I remember when they delayed, I remember coming on BRAP, when they delayed Starfield out of November, I instantly said, this will be the best year for Sony to come out and do something they've never done before. And that would be release a first-party title during the holiday season, because there is nothing in that window that could even oppose that game during that window, because Starfield was the game that was supposed to do it. And then what did they do? They announced it to come out in November 9th of 2022, which they probably would have still did anyway, but it was just an educated guess just based on, the way they've been moving when it comes to that stuff. And then people are always going to talk about, well, they did release games under PlayStation in the fourth quarter, and it was games like Deathloop and stuff like that. And I was like, no, I said first party, not third or second party. They did a lot of third party stuff. And then they were going to talk about Spider-Man and stuff. I said, well, now we're picking nits at this point, because they're not going to release a system without a first-party title. They're not Microsoft. Let's be for real here. So Spider-Man releasing with the system, I don't really count it, because they had to release something with it. So that was the only game, and that was with a console release. So in general, that's why I just felt about it. I didn't think they would do it. I'm shocked they did it. But guess what? It worked out for him, because the game sold a crap ton of copies, and that's good for them.
So one thing I will say is, and I totally missed this because this information was coming out about the time that I was kind of getting off the hamster wheel of paying attention to all this stuff. Had we actually paid attention to the Microsoft earnings report and forward-looking guidance, we would have also seen evidence that Starfield was nowhere in the windshield. Because after the 13% decline in gaming revenue for this quarter, the forward-looking guidance for next quarter is that gaming revenue will continue to decline, which wouldn't have necessarily been the case if Starfield was going to land, and probably would have had some type of caveat inserted into that statement, based on that impending release. So, I mean, there was kind of. Yeah, there was kind of financial evidence that this was coming, by the fact that they didn't report any upswing or any mitigation of that decline, right?
So what you're basically saying is they don't expect Redfall to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
Because that is this quarter.
Yeah, I don't think that they would say that they expect Redfall to fail, but they definitely say, they're definitely indicating it's not going to necessarily cushion the blow of more slippage right into the next quarter coming.
Yes, that's true.
Whereas I would have expected Starfield, by all accounts, right, by all notions of business strategy, and again, breaking this apart and decomposing it as a case study, should be a needle mover, right? Should be a system seller. And you would think if, when that comes around, the forward-looking guidance will say something, right, to that effect, that there's an expected upswing in Xbox console sales, right, or or big releases coming out. I mean, what that also seems to say to me, because I've been, grumpy about no release date being given for Forza Motorsport, that also seems to indicate that, I won't necessarily say that that's not coming, but maybe the projection is that even if it does arrive in this upcoming quarter, that it won't move the needle because of its presence in Game Pass.
Yeah, even Sargent, he even says Redfall releases 1 week before Zelda, and the following month is FIFA 16, Street Fighter 6, and Diablo. People's interests are going to be really split over the course of that month.
Yep. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. All right, gentlemen.
But we'll play Redfall together. We'll all play Redfall together, aren't we, guys? Let's go.
I don't know. Maybe.
That's a big hell no.
You don't even want to give Microsoft Game a chance.
I'm not.
No, that's not a Microsoft thing. That's my confidence isn't there from help me. I don't know why I'm brain dumping the name of the developer now.
Arcane.
Oh, you talk about
Arcane.
Arcane. Yeah.
Which is absolutely, like, when I make my short list of like top 5 developers of all time, maybe even top 10 developers, Arcane is up there. I think they're absolutely one of the best developers out there. But the best developer on a new thing is not something that gets my resounding confidence, unless they've shown me peaks that would indicate so. And I just don't know that the Arcane style and approach to game design works with a PvP, or I should say, with a squad-based shooter. Kind of in this genre, it's a wait and see for me. But also, and again, this is just me. This is not an indictment on the game. For whatever reason, my nerdism takes vampire lore very seriously, and I'm just not buying I'm unable to suspend disbelief, right? That this squad of humans against vampires. It just doesn't equate to me with the threat level, right, that vampires should be from what I've seen. They seem very nerfed and very neutered, and I'm just kind of like, I'm not sure I can buy into that approach. But again, maybe that balances out with a resounding tactical implementation that gives me a great feel. But I just haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Good point.
All right, Logic. Thank you again, sir. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you?
No one can find me right now.
All right.
I've gone deep undercover. I'm laying low. Staying out of the windshield of the mafia bosses that have been coming after me. So, no, I'm nowhere. I may show up here occasionally, been a guest spot.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you again for your time. Appreciate it. But look, everyone have a great rest of the week. Play video games. Have fun. That's what it's about. We'll catch you next week. We're out. Thank you.
Good point.